You ever open your investing app, stare at the number, and do that weird little mental math where you think, okay, if this keeps growing, maybe I'm not doomed. Maybe I'm not behind forever. Maybe all those years of saying no to random junk, moving money automatically, and pretending index funds are more exciting than they look are actually doing something. Because for a long time, wealth building feels invisible. You save, you invest, you wait, and honestly, it kind of feels like watering a tree in the dark. And I think about this stuff way too much. My name is Threk, and I spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about money, psychology, and the strange moment when wealth stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling, structurally real. And that's why the $500,000 mark is so fascinating to me, because once you have $500,000 invested, everything changes. Not in the flashy, private jet, I've transcended grocery prices kind of way, but in the deeper way, the emotional way, the strategic way, the way that changes how you see time, risk, work, and even your own future. Because at that point, your money is no longer just following you. It's starting to move ahead of you. The first big change is that progress becomes visible. Before $500,000, wealth building often feels like pushing a car that doesn't want to start. You put in effort, your shoes are slipping, your back hurts, and the car moves, but barely. Then somewhere around this level, the engine catches. Not perfectly, not every day, markets still do their weird market thing, but you start seeing years where your portfolio grows by amounts that used to feel impossible to save from your paycheck alone. And that messes with your brain a little, in a good way mostly. Let's say your investments grow 8% in a strong year. On $500,000, that's $40,000. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed anything, obviously. And some years will be rough, awkward, and emotionally annoying. But still, just seeing the possibility of your money making that kind of move changes your relationship with effort. You realize the game is no longer only about what you can personally earn and save this month. It's also about what your existing capital can do while you sleep, work, commute, and waste 12 minutes deciding whether you really need the expensive coffee. The second thing that changes is your patience, or at least it has the chance to. When people have very little invested, every market dip feels personal. It feels like the universe specifically looked at your account and said, yeah, let's ruin this person's Tuesday. But when you reach $500,000, you begin to understand something quieter and more powerful. Volatility is not just chaos, it is the price of admission. That doesn't make declines fun. I don't know anyone who sees their portfolio drop and thinks, what a lovely character-building experience. But you stop seeing every downturn as proof that something is broken. You start seeing it as part of the machine. And that matters because the wealthiest long-term investors aren't usually the people with the fanciest opinions. They're the people who can sit still when sitting still feels unnatural. $500,000 invested teaches you that emotional control is not some cute side skill. It is the skill. If you panic and interrupt compounding every time the market gets dramatic, your money never gets the uninterrupted time it needs to become something much bigger. The third shift is that work feels different. This one is subtle, but it's huge. Once you have $500,000 invested, your job is still important, your income still matters, and no, this is not the part where I tell you to quit everything and move to a beach with a spreadsheet. But work stops feeling like your only oxygen tank. You begin to feel this tiny but powerful layer of distance between yourself and desperation. And that distance changes how you negotiate, what you tolerate, and how scared you are of change. You might speak up more. You might take a smarter career risk. You might stop clinging to a bad situation just because missing one paycheck feels like stepping off a cliff. That's what money does at this level. It doesn't always buy freedom in the cinematic sense. Sometimes it buys negotiating power, breathing room, the ability to think clearly in rooms where fear used to make every decision for you. The fourth change is that your focus shifts from accumulation to protection. When you're early in the game, almost everything is about building. Increase income, cut waste, automate investing, stay consistent. But at $500,000, you start asking a different question. How do I not mess this up? And honestly, that is a very healthy question, because once real capital exists, protecting the system becomes just as important as feeding it. That means you care more about asset allocation, more about taxes, more about not doing something spectacularly dumb because a guy online promised 10x returns and had very confident lighting. It also means your emergency fund, insurance, and overall life setup matter more than people think. Real wealth isn't just a big account balance, it's a structure. If one unexpected disaster forces you to liquidate good investments at a bad time, the machine gets interrupted. So this stage is where adults become painfully interested in boring things. Diversification, account placement, estate basics, withdrawal strategy. It's not glamorous, but neither is rebuilding from preventable mistakes. And the fifth shift, maybe the biggest one, is psychological. You stop needing money to prove quite as much. This is one of my favorite parts. At lower levels, money can feel very tied to identity. Am I behind? Am I winning? Am I smart? Am I safe? But once you have $500,000 invested, there's often a quiet internal shift where wealth starts feeling less like a scoreboard and more like a tool. You stop obsessing over looking rich and start caring more about being resilient. You become less impressed by status theater and more impressed by calm systems. A person with a flashy car used to look powerful. Now the person with low fixed expenses, solid investments, and options looks powerful. That is a very different lens. So, how does everything change once you have $500,000 invested? Your progress becomes visible. Your patience becomes more valuable. Your job loses some of its emotional control over you. Your attention shifts from just building wealth to protecting it. And maybe most importantly, your relationship with money becomes less frantic and more mature. Not perfect, just steadier. And if you're not there yet, that's okay, really. The point of this milestone isn't to make you feel late, it's to show you what becomes possible when consistency is given enough time to turn into momentum. Because $500,000 invested is not magic, it is years of ordinary decisions stacked so high they start changing your life in ways that feel almost unfair to your past self. So keep going. Keep building the system. Keep acting like the boring deposits matter, because one day they won't look boring at all. One day they'll look like the exact moment your money stopped being small and started becoming powerful.